Andy Stevenson for SevereMMA at Fight Academy Ireland alongside Paddy McCorry. You've got a big fight coming up on Cage Warriors 153 against Angus Hewett on Saturday, April 29th. Yeah. We're here in Belfast. Firstly, when did you start training here in FAI?
I started training in FAI when I was like 18, I believe. I was doing a bit of training with my boxing coach, Donald McNally, and he was training Joe McCogan and stuff. I'm not sure if it was for the Peter Queally fight or the fight before that. And I was doing a bit of sparring with Joe, and then from then it just eventually came up, done a bit of training with the lads and haven't looked back.
So that would have been boxing firstly with Donald?
Yeah, it was just boxing firstly with Donald. Because I boxed when I was a kid, and then I left for like a year or two. And then I just done some pads with Donald, which eventually led on to sparring Joe, and then coming up here.
How did that early spar with Joe go?
Joe was a nightmare back then. I used to call him the fucking blanket, man. He just used to suffocate you, rip the body of you. It was a nightmare, to be fair.
Yeah. And did you grow up around here?
Yeah, well, I live on the Springfield Road. It's probably about 15 or 20 minutes from here. But it's still in West Belfast, to be fair, so it's not too far away, you know. Yeah,
and it's like you see nowadays, you see teenagers and young lads coming up in the gym, but they start at 18 is obviously maybe a little bit later in comparison. Were you playing other sports up until then?
Well, I was just boxing when I was a kid. I was boxing. And then I left boxing at the end of 5th year in school, and then I'd done 6th year in school and started working a bit, so I wasn't really training much in that transition before I joined MMA. But whenever I joined MMA, there was no one really from my area doing MMA. This would be considered up the road, and then where I live is down the road, and there was no one really down the road who was fighting at MMA at the time.
What's up the road and down the road for people who might not know, like myself?
It's funny. Whenever we were kids, we would always beef with the up the roaders. So funny, mate. If we were all out, fucking socialising or getting up to no good, there would be beef with people from up the road just because they live up the road. It's so stupid now looking back to it, but obviously there is no MMA gyms down the road, so I would have always had to come up here if I wanted to train MMA. But when I first started, I would have had to get a bus, one bus up till the roundabout and then walk up the 4-laner, to get here before I started driving. Yeah. So it was a bit of a nightmare. But since I've started training MMA, there's a lot of people down the road now here fighting, fucking Jared Burns, he just lives around the corner from me, James Hughes, it's thriving down the road at the minute. Everyone's doing a bit, and there's loads of people coming up to the gym, so it's good to be representing for down the road.
At the time then, were you kind of walking into enemy territory down the road or coming up the road?
You could say so. Maybe that's why they clattered ahead of me when I first came up.
You're coming off, I was about to say a win. It's not a win. You're coming off a loss to James Webb, but man, that fight, to take a fight like that, at the very start of your career against a former Cage Warriors champion, middleweight champion, James Webb, very experienced guy. I think you have a massive, I said in the podcast, you have a massive set of balls to take that fight. Was there any hesitation for you when that came up?
No, there was no hesitation. Well, I think I'll learn a lot from that fight, and it'll stand by me, as my career progresses, because I learned so much in them 15 minutes from such a veteran like James, you know what I mean? You can't buy experience at the end of the day, and he taught me a lot of things within those 15 minutes. But no, there was no real hesitation. It was probably because there was a slight frustration as well, because I was trying to get fights, and then maybe had a pull out, and then I was supposed to fight in Cage Warriors Wales, and then I'd done my LCL. So whenever I got back and I was fit, I was just chomping at the bit and trying to fight. So I would have fought anyone at that point, to be fair. So I don't regret taking the fight at all, because I obviously learned a lot from it, and it was a good fight, you know what I mean? I had fun. I know this is a short career, so I'm in here to get the biggest fights possible whenever I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I often give out and complain when there's matchups that I'm like, they should be fighting someone more experienced, but that was the complete opposite. Yeah. Going into that, you were confident though, were you?
Absolutely 100% confident, mate. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to put him away. Right up until the final bell, I was still he's going to slow down and I'm going to finish him here. You know what I mean? Even going into the third round, my tank was on complete empty, but I had just such unwavering belief in my head that I was going to put him away. You know what I mean? Right up until the bell, I was I'm going to get a break and sleep this guy here 100%. But he showed his experience and how crafty he was, that even when I had him hurt, I wasn't able to get him out there, and I wasn't able to finish. And I do pride myself on my finishing ability. I do believe that whenever I get people hurt, that I can get them out of there, you know, like pretty quickly. Like I do think I have that killer instinct, and I do have belief in my killer instinct that if I do have someone hurt or I see them slow down slightly, that I'll try and get them out of there, and I do believe that I will get them out of there whenever they're hurt. So that was the first time kind of where I had someone really hurt and I didn't really get them out of there. But I think it was a wee bit of lack of experience and like jumping the gun and going too early, you know, like when I did get them hurt and getting too excited. Like I can remember hearing the referee screaming "fight back, James," and I just got so excited. I was like, I just need to touch this guy and he's away here. So I like roused my work and like it was overreaching and stuff, and my weight wasn't right. Whereas now that I've been there and done that and experienced the referee screaming in my ear and hearing the noise of the crowd when you almost have someone out there, the next time I have someone hurt and I'm in that position, I'll be a lot more calm and calculated and fixing my shots, and I'll not be mixing up my work, you know what I mean? It'll be a lot cleaner.
Obviously, the first couple of rounds, James had a lot of success in the fight. Were you surprised? Like, what was that experience like for you when you're coming into a fight? You know you're up against a really solid opponent, but you're very confident going in, and then for having to not be going your way for the first couple of rounds.
No, I wasn't under any illusion going into the fight that it was all going to go my way. You know what I mean? I know James, he's a 2-time world champion. You know what I mean? You don't win 2 Cage Warriors world titles without knowing what you're doing. He's a very high level black belt, and he's very strong. The strength at the start, I knew that he was going to come strong and he would come flying at me and try and put me on the back foot and keep me down, but I was prepared for that, and I was prepared to weather the storm and take my opportunity when it came, you know what I mean? So I was even maybe expecting to be down the first round and you know, like trying to like maybe having to get up a couple of times in the first round and then just take advantage of the fight whenever he started slowing down, whenever I was defending. So I wasn't surprised at all that he came out flying the way he did, but the strength, he was a lot stronger than I expected. He is very strong.
We had Liam Shannon on the L Triangle, and he was, you know, we were talking about matchmaking and how had you won that fight, you know, it's a massive progression. Like the incline would be so steep. As much as it's probably painful to take a loss, is it almost a blessing in disguise, or do you see it that way?
Well, you could say so. I don't know, whenever it's all said and done, I might look back at it and be like it was a blessing in disguise, but I've also had sleepless nights thinking if that knee had slapped him, it would have been perfect, you know what I mean? If it was 2 rounds down and it just came out and put him away with a flying knee in the 3rd round, well, I would have done wonders for my career, you know what I mean? But as you say, where do you go after you beat a former 2-time world champion whenever you're only 3 fights into your career, you know what I mean? You can't really go backwards after that, and at the minute I still do need to be getting experience. There's a lot of things that you can only learn whenever you're in the cage, and to know that I need cage time and I need fights to be ticking all those things off the list and be gathering experience, you know, like before I start going for world titles and stuff myself. So it could be a blessing in disguise, but at the same time it would have been very nice if it had came off. But as you say, where do you go from there? Like it would have been a tricky situation to be in, but from that performance I've obviously been getting more opportunities now, fighting a guy who has the more similar experience to me on the Dublin card, so there's no regrets for me for taking that fight at all. Now
that you've felt the championship pedigree against James Webb, what did you learn from that about yourself maybe?
Well, I learned that there is no quit in me, because I think going into that fight, James Webb wanted to have my back. He wanted to be choking me from the back. He wanted to maybe have me in a head and arm choke, which is one of his favourite submissions. He's finished lots of guys with a head and arm, finished lots of people on the back. And I spent like a round with him on my back, and I was in a locked in head and arm, and I was able to survive them and come through the other end and still I try and put the attack on him, you know what I mean? So I learned a lot about myself in them, because when you're in them type of positions and you're in them areas where you know this is people's specialty, like things jump into your head, you know, like you're having like a wee battle with yourself, and you don't know how you're going to react until you're in them situations. But I know that even when my tank was on empty, I was running on fumes, like halfway through the 3rd round in that fight I started getting like blurry vision just because I was just so exhausted. But even when my vision was blurry, I was still pushing, I was still trying to finish him, you know, like until the very end. So I learned a lot about myself, just feeling someone of his level and being in there for 15 minutes. It was my first time doing 15 minutes as well. My 2 pro fights before that didn't get out of the 1st round, so every minute after the 1st round was new territory for me, you know what I mean, especially with such a high level operator in James. So I learned so much in them 15 minutes. I'm grateful for the experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the Irish have a rich history in cage warriors, and more recently Fight Academy Ireland are flying it. You know, Paul Hughes, Joe McColgan, Rhys McKee, 3 champions. Rhys is actually someone who has been kind of singing your praises to me for a long time, saying that you're the next guy to be looking at. To be mixing it up with guys like those and training with them day in, day out, is that inspiring to you?
Yeah, it's super inspiring to me, mate. Whenever I was training with Donald, who I was telling you, the boxing coach, whenever I was training with him way back then, Rhys was training with him too. So even before I had had MMA fights, I was like training with Rhys, doing a bit of boxing and helping him out wherever I could, obviously with spars and stuff. So just watching Rhys's rise has obviously been inspiring. The same with Paul, the same with Joe. You take inspiration from all of them. Like, there's a banner out there and they're on that wall as world champions, and that's where I want to be. I want to be on that wall as a world champion. I want my banner right beside theirs. That's my goal, you know what I mean? So I take massive inspiration from them, but I also see what it takes to get there, and them boys don't cut any corners, and they're the hardest workers I know. Like the people who you just mentioned there on that list, they're the hardest working people I know. So it's by no mistake that they're on that list and they are the world champions. So I know that there's no flukes in order to get there, or it's not a matter of luck. It's who's ready to put in the most work, and they're the ones who'll become world champions. So that's just what I'm trying to replicate at the minute. Yeah,
you see yourself as a world champion in time, though, do you?
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind that I'll be a world champion before it's all said and done. Like, I wouldn't be doing this sport if I didn't believe I could be a world champion.
The next step lies through Angus Hewett. He's a guy he's making his pro debut, but he's fought an amateur on Cage Warriors Academy shows. I believe he's undefeated as an amateur. When you look at that matchup, what do you see?
When I look at that matchup, I see a stiff juice head, explosive, strong, dangerous for one round. But I don't think Angus Hewett has fought anyone like me. I have fought plenty of Angus Hewetts before. Big, strong guys coming to hold me, to spoil the fight. But he has never fought anyone like me. It's making his pro debut. It's his first time doing 5 minutes. It's his first time in the bigger cage. It's his first time in the arenas, and he's fighting me. That's not good for anyone.
You were obviously slated to fight on the Belfast card, right? And it fell through. Obviously, it's not Belfast, not your hometown, but Dublin. It's fighting in Ireland. Does that mean you know? Is that special to you?
It means just as much to me, because everyone can still get to it. You know what I mean? All my friends and family and stuff. And I remember way back ages ago, before I'd had an MMA fight, I think it was a Bama show, and Rhys McKee was fighting on it. And I remember watching it, and Rhys McKee sparked the guy, and I was just in awe. I was like, that is unbelievable. That's exactly what I want to be doing. Like, just watching Rhys putting him without no Rhys coming out.
The Jai Herbert fight been chance, was it?
No, I don't think it was a Jai Herbert. It could have been, but I think it was his third fight. It was like a late replacement. He was fighting a big muscly guy, and Rhys slapped him, and I was just like, oh my God, so these skinny guys can sleep the juice head. And I was like, that's what I want to be doing one day. And then now I'm on Rhys's undercard, so it's like a full circle moment for me. So I'm ready to grab it with both hands, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, I've spoken before with the guys, and sometimes the gyms that are outside of the bigger gyms, outside of the SBG, can be overlooked at times by the bigger promotions. Do you feel like the Cage Warriors card specifically is kind of a coming out party for not just the guys at the top of FAI that are already known quantities, but for the next kind of wave coming through? Yeah, 100%. I do believe that we're starting to maybe get the opportunities now we deserved, because the guys were kicking down the door and going over, taking the hardest fights, winning world titles, but the people come behind them weren't necessarily getting the opportunities that we deserve from them paving the way. But I think this year we've started to get the opportunities we deserve, and it's just it's up to us to grab them opportunities with both hands and show them what we're about, you know what I mean? Yeah, which is there any other fights on the card that you're most looking forward to?
Well, I can't wait for Rhys's fight, to be fair, but outside of the gym, what do you call the guy from Rhino? Fuck, I'm going to forget his name.
James Sheehan.
Oh,
but Elliott. Yeah, it's a cracker. It's an absolute cracker.
That's going to be a bomb.
Two prospects going head to head. It's kind of a...
Yeah, it's a really good fight, really evenly matched, but I do think James Sheehan will beat him. I think he's just a wee bit crispier on the feet and a wee bit more well-rounded.
Have you looked at another one I'm really excited about is Ryan Shelley versus Tobias Harila?
Cracking fight. Yeah, I was down training with Ryan Shelley. Both the Shelleys actually have a good fight.
Yeah, against Dean Barry. Yeah,
Dean Barry. I think that's a great matchup. So it is. The Shelleys are very deceiving. Whenever you're watching them fight, and they're on the feet. You don't understand the traps that they're setting and the feints that they're setting until you actually do a bit of sparring with them, or obviously if you're in there fighting them yourselves. But when I was down and doing a bit of sparring and doing a bit of moving about with them, the feints that they're like showing and how fast twitch they are, but relaxed at the same time, they actually are very hard people to deal with. You know what I mean?
You were just saying a minute ago about skinny guys putting it on.
100%. You know what I mean? But see that Shelley's fight against the guy from Manchester top team. That was one of the best performances that I've ever seen. When the guy was like from Dagestan, knocking people out with spinning head kicks, and he was undefeated. And then Shelley destroyed him, took his soul just over 2 rounds. The guy was shooting for his life, and then
Magdi Garif, is that his name?
I think that's the guy. And then Shelley just rid the wave and then finished him in the 3rd round, just completely mauled him. Like, I thought that was unbelievable. That was a lovely fight to watch. I loved see watching people coming to stall out the fight and hold the strikers down, and a striker who can like ride the wave and finish him. I love watching that.
You mentioned Dean Barry versus Adam Shelley there. I go back and forth on this, and I feel like I'm sometimes in the minority where I'm like, I'd like to see these matchups. But when you see an Irish versus an Irish fighter being paired up, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's good. Like, it's good. It's good. Especially, I think that's a good fight for Shelley, because Dean Barry has got a wee bit of a name for himself since he went to the UFC. But I'd fancy Shelley in that fight, to be fair. I think Shelley will do him, to be fair. But they all Irish fights, they're good sometimes to get a wee bit of a buzz, you know what I mean? But if it's necessary to fight, like other Irish guys, but there's also plenty of people for us out there to be fighting each other, you know what I mean? I think as soon as Irish people get like one or 2 wins, they're like putting them against this other Irish guy. But in promotions like Cage Warriors, we're spoiled for choice when it comes to other countries and stuff, so a lot of us should be sticking together and just fucking going at all them cunts, you know what I mean?
I'll let you go now, because I know I'm eating into your strength and conditioning here. If you were to map out, say, the next year to 2 years, how would you like to see your career progressing? Is there a plan in place that you've thought of?
No, there is no real plan in place. It's just to stay busy and stay active in Cage Warriors. I don't want to be having any big gaps in between my fights. I want to start building a bit of momentum, knocking a few people out, and then maybe this time next year, the end of next year, be knocking on the door of a title shot, you know what I mean? But I'm in no rush. I'm only 25 now, and I'm under no illusion that I'm ready for world titles. I still have a lot of learning to do, a lot of learning, which I get shown every single day up here. Whenever the rounds up here are crazy, you're getting exposed every day, so you're constantly being shown holes in your game that you need to patch up, and constantly learning. So I'm just going to keep showing up to the gym every day, taking any fight that they offer me, and hopefully build some momentum and go on and run towards a title shot. I'm not going to stop until I have a banner out there with me on it and a world champion beside it, you know what I mean?
2 more questions.
No problem.
Who's the one to watch that we don't know of yet in the gym?
Well, I don't know if you don't know him, but Kieran Coogan.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Kieran Coogan is the man. Kieran Coogan is just about it. He's just about it.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Kieran's an amateur flyweight, right?
Yeah.
Who's had some fantastic fights. He had a crazy fight last time out.
Yeah. I think Fight Academy are just going to be taking over the flyweight division soon, because Kieran Coogan, an amateur, is unbelievable. He's just a dog, mate. He's just not about any of the stupid stuff. He doesn't really care. About the social media or how this looks, or he's just a dog, man. He loves fights, takes the hardest fights, and he always just gives it everything every time he's fighting. He's always up training hard. You'll see people come up here and they may be pros or whatever, and they're coming up for a bit of sparring. It's do a wee bit with Kieran, and they're like, you pair me up with this kid, and then Kieran fucks them up, you know what I mean? So Kieran is definitely one to watch. And then Jared Burns, a pro as well. He's going to explode on the scene this year. I'm expecting a big performance from him later on tonight, and then he'll go on a tour in Cage Warriors, and then just whenever he's hitting world titles at Cage Warriors, Kieran Coogan's going to come along. So I think you'll be seeing a lot of Fight Academy Ireland in the flyweight division for the next few years.
You mentioned wanting knockouts. Is the knockout the prediction for this fight at Cage Warriors 153?
I'm 100% coming to knock this guy out. I'm always coming for the finish. I love knocking people out. At the end of my career, I just want to have a highlight reel of a load of cool knockouts, you know what I mean? But I have no doubt that this guy's going to be coming to shoot for his life and sniff jocks. So if he gets lazy with his neck when he's doing that, you might see me snatch his neck. But if not, I'm going to spark him. Definitely. As soon as he slows down, he gets a wee bit flat-footed, and the steroids have wore off, and his fast twitch muscle fibre isn't there anymore, I'm going to blow his head off.
It's quite the statement. Paddy McCorry, no nickname yet?
No, yet.
No nickname, okay. We'll have to see about that. Paddy, no nickname. McCorry, fighting the Cage Warriors 153 in Dublin, in Dublin's 3 Arena. A huge show. Plenty of FAI guys and Reece McKee topping the card in a huge unification bout against Jimmy Wallhead. Tune in to UFC Fight Pass and appreciate the time.
Appreciate it, Andy. Thanks very much, man.
Nice
Good to have you up.